Let's now speak to Professor Lise Korsten from the University of Pretoria. Prof, thank you so much for your time and for joining us this afternoon. Let's perhaps start with you explaining what tiber is and what it's used for.
Okay, so this is an organophosphate, and it's a very important insecticide used in agriculture. I want to make this clear. It's an agricultural pesticide, and it's not for home street use or residential area use. It's used in agriculture, particularly during the planting stage. It can be used in terms of production of corn or maize, even groundnuts, sugar beets, even citrus and potato. And it's very specifically used for control of insects. So this could be the corn borer, it could be maggots, seed corn maggots, nematodes, and for various insecticides. And that's a very important point.
Right. So just staying on that point, Prof, if you're saying it's for agricultural use, could it be that people within their spaza shops or within communities could be using it for other uses, thinking that it could assist possibly with rats that have infested their areas and not necessarily knowing the dangers of it?
Yes, so what's very interesting, last year already there was a publication that this specific insecticide is commonly used in the informal sector as a street insecticide, or it's just used to control rats or cockroaches, even flies, maggots, and it should not be used for that purpose. And it may never, ever, ever be repacked and sold into smaller packets. This is totally illegally. It's sold and controlled by the chemical industry and by distributors that's registered and that may legally use it and who is trained to use it. And no agricultural chemical may be sold unlabeled. This is very important. So what has happened is illegal, and there has been reports of this, and this must be regulated and controlled.
So what form does it come in, Prof? Does it come in a liquid form? Is it a solid? What does it look like?
It's in a powder form, but obviously a lot of insecticides may be sold in liquid or powder form, granular, depending on the specific product. In this case, it's a powder form sold in little sachets, little bags. There's no label on. All pesticides must be locked, particularly your higher risk products, particularly what we call red label products. It must be locked away. It must be controlled. And only a registered or trained person may handle it. Only a registered person may sell it. And if you use it, you must not only be trained, but you must use appropriate wear. You can inhale this insecticide, and it's fatal. If you may contaminate water and other food sources, if you don't know how to handle it. You have to wear protective clothing when you handle and spray or apply any of these higher risk pesticides. So this is very, very important. So a lack of total awareness and illegal operations is very important to mention.
So, Prof, I mean, this sounds like a very lethal substance. And the Minister of Health mentioned that it does not even need to be ingested, like you say. You can inhale it. Even just by touching it, going through the skin, it could lead to death. Now, if the people who are selling these snacks that are possibly the outer packaging of it is contaminated by this chemical, what would then be the reaction of a person, an adult, handling this as opposed to a child like we saw in this particular case? Does it affect adults and children in the same way?
Oh, no. Children are much more susceptible. They're more vulnerable. And it's extremely important that no child should ever be exposed to it, come in contact with it, let alone handle it. And that's why food or poisoning is quite common. There's a body of literature already explaining poisoning by pesticides. And this is by accidental, maybe touching it or even drinking it. And I think some of the more historical cases is where children died when they by accident drank insecticide or pesticide for that matter that was stored in a unlabeled bottle or bag. So that's extremely important. They are very vulnerable and they should never be exposed to this.
So,
in fact, no one should if you don't know how to handle it.
of course. And then if you are then exposed to it, what are its effects on the body before leading to death?
Oh, a lot of people, I think you've seen on the reports, foaming. It's a nerve chemical. It will cause vomiting and immediate death. It's really an extremely important, and a lot of pesticides are extremely important not to ingest it or come in contact, and it's fatal, particularly if it's in a higher dosage, and particularly if it's children. It will have a rapid effect, and I think we must really consider this as an important case in our history of our country in terms of food safety. The care that must go in not only preparation of food, but storage of food and the point of sale. Is really a shared responsibility. It's a community that must be involved and help us in terms of managing this.
So in the case where we saw these 6 children having then consumed this chemical, what do you advise a parent or anyone who is in that situation to take as a first response? Do you give milk? Do you give water? Does that even help?
Yes, usually people do try milk. It's an old remedy, or water, and obviously to try and wash the hands of the children. By then they need to get them to a medical doctor as quickly as possible. And it's extremely important to be able to connect the item that was consumed or touched or drank, if it was a liquid, and to take that with, or to ensure that it's at least recorded, so that could be given to the medical practitioner as quickly as possible to ensure the correct treatment. And this is very important. And I think general awareness for all parents, and perhaps even at school level, making children more aware of being mindful of things like this, products like this.
So, Prof, I mean, earlier on you made mention of food safety and the regulations that need to be in place, and also just the shared responsibility that communities need to have around this issue. Do you think there's enough regulation around such substances, especially in that we have it being sold outside of the parameters of where it should be sold, and it having access to communities in the way that it does?
So I want to say there's adequate regulations in terms of handling pesticides in the agricultural sector. Anyone who buy it and who handle it know, and they often are trained in handling and storing it correctly. So we must separate these cases. There is a regulated pathway. We test our food products for pesticide residues. And the people using it, they know what they're doing, they're training it, they have storage facilities that's adequate to store it. And it's a totally different story if it's handled illegally, if it's moved illegally, because then you have no control over it. And keeping in mind, we also don't have enough environmental health practitioners who can actually monitor this. So we really need to increase our number of people, inspectors that can go out into these informal areas and make sure that we are not, that illegal products such as these pesticides that should not be used in an informal setting or in a little shop, and a little bag may be confused with another item, and people may consume it. So it's very important that we create awareness, we create adequate training opportunities for everyone in the community, and that we all take responsibility for this. We have to be more focused on the quality and the safety of all food that we give to all our people. There can be no food security unless we have safe food. And if it's not safe, it's not food.
Of course.
It's very important.
I mean, Prof, you are then alluding that we don't necessarily have a regulation problem, but rather the implementation of some of these regulations. And speaking about health inspectors, where did we go wrong? Where did we put the foot off the pedal in ensuring that it has become a culture within our societies that health inspectors are on a daily or weekly or monthly within these premises and ensuring that the safety of food is where it should be?
Is, our country, first of all, haven't trained enough inspectors in general for our food sector, and even within agriculture, we do not have enough trained specialists. We don't have enough risk assessors, for instance. And there's critical needs in our country, and I believe we should shift our training to consider these incredibly important gaps. We don't train enough PhDs, for instance, but it's not only about PhDs, it's about people with technical expertise and people, qualified inspectors, qualified auditors that can help keep our whole food system safe. So I believe there should be a refocus. We should really consider increasing short courses and community awareness programs. These are frontline public health workers, the inspectors, and we must make sure we train more. We need to maybe bring back some from retirement. They could help create and train a whole next generation of people. But the public must be informed, and they must be aware, and they must take responsibility. It's not government's responsibility to do all of this. It's a shared responsibility. We must step in, and we must all be involved.
All right, Prof, thank you so much for your time and your insights. I'm sure it's really assisting with a lot of South Africans who have a lot of questions around these chemical substances. That was Professor Lise Korsten from the University of Pretoria speaking to us.